Okay, it looks like it's 4 o'clock, so we should probably get this party started. My name is Tricia Fay. I teach at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. And I am absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to introduce two of my students, one former student, actually, and one current student, Felipe Maldonado and Jordan Blankenship. Felipe graduated last year and immediately walked right into a high school teaching job where he is building a whole new ceramics area, which is very, very exciting. And Jordan is going to be graduating in a matter of weeks. And her senior project exhibition will be opening a month from yesterday, so she has some work to do when we get home. But last year, we did a discussion group that focused on a little wood kiln that we had built at school with brick left over from other people's kilns that we were firing up to cone 10 in 7 hours using wood from pallets. And that presentation was called Mini Heat 1, and there was a lot of people there. It was interesting because a lot of people were intrigued by the idea of being able to do atmospheric firings without having the giant anagama and the huge crowd of people and, you know, felling an entire forest to do it. And so a lot of people after that conversation said, oh, you should do more, you should have another talk, you should do another something. And so we went home and we thought about that, and at that same time we were applying for a summer grant. Now this is an important piece of all this. Many of you who teach at institutions know that the topic of undergraduate research is very, very important right now, particularly framing creative activity as undergraduate scholarship. So we had a wonderful donor to our institution who specifically gave money to the College of Arts and Sciences for Humanities and Liberal Studies and included funding for an undergraduate research program. So in thinking about what we wanted to do next, Jordan was very interested in doing soda. And I didn't want her doing soda in my wood kiln because I wanted the wood kiln to stay a wood kiln. So we looked at what we had, and we had just turned over the original electric kilns that we bought when we started the school 17 years ago. And so we had these dead electric kilns and thought, okay, well, why don't we do that? And as we wrote the proposal for this summer grant, we thought, okay, let's see what we can do with an electric kiln. And can we make it into an atmospheric kiln? So let's try adding wood. Let's try adding soda. Let's try adding gas. Let's see what we can do with something that we would just be putting in the dumpster. And we also, just because that wasn't enough to do, decided that cone 3 is now the new cone 6, and that we were going to see what we could do at cone 3. So this whole research project revolved around that set of questions, and they are going to take you through this research experiment that we got a week ago. We fired the most recent kiln, and there's still more work to do, but we have some promising results that are really exciting. And they're going to present for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then what we'd really love to do is engage anyone here in a conversation about this whole idea of accessible atmospheres, of dropping temperatures, of using what you have, of trying to get cool results with unexpected equipment. Okay? So, so without further ado, I would like to present Felipe Maldonado and Jordan Blankenship.
How does this work?
I was just speaking. Hello? All
Okay,
right.
that's working.
Sorry.
So with this approach to cone 3 and soda, we are only familiar in our studio with working with cone 10. So we had to completely develop new clay bodies and glaze testing. So this is part of our initial research project and finding the start. We created around 23 different clay bodies, adjusting the recipes after each firing, looking at their working properties and the firing properties, testing the shrinkage, testing the absorption. Since this was a new cone 3, we wanted to make sure that the pieces would hold up and that they'd be great for functional wear. It was all a new approach for us, so we wanted to see where we could go with it.
Yeah, a lot of the issues that we fell into were we've never worked in a lower temperature, so we're learning how to manage this temperature, figuring out what bodies are going to work best in this kiln, what the bodies will actually do. Will they survive? Will they bloat? Will they melt, as you can see in one of the slides there?
We had a lot of problems in the beginning.
We had a lot of
all
problems.
of our white bodies ended up melting onto the kiln shelf in the first firing.
Which disclaimer,
Yeah.
kiln wash is a great thing.
Yeah, we kind of got too excited and just ended up throwing all the pieces in without actually thinking it through. That was a lovely surprise, but it's a good example for all the intro students in ceramics. Hey, clay does melt.
With all the research and learning about the different properties of clay and how to make your own clay, going through the shrinkage, like Jordan said, the shrinkage rates, the properties of the adaptability of it, what it does, we also moved into commercial clay bodies that were in our local area. High Water Clay is one of the suppliers for Florida.
Which was an important part to this equation because once we graduate, we're not going to have access to the clay mixing room. So we did want to see what commercial clay bodies did. So we looked at some mid-range bodies. Not all of them actually were considered Cone 3, but they held up really nicely and they gave us great colors.
Yeah, when we actually did the commercial bodies, as you can see on the bottom left corner, that is a commercial mid-range body, so 5 to 6. No. Sorry, that's the earthen red. I apologize.
The P5 is
the earthen red, which is a lower body temperature. So we were seeing how we can seeing the difference, see how high we can take a lower temperature body and how low we can take a higher temperature body, and seeing what those results do. So the picture that you see there is actually 2 different firings. One of them is a reduction firing, the other one is an oxidation firing. So seeing the very same exact clay body do 2 different things at 2 different temperatures.
Oxidation on the right and a reduction on the left. At Cone 3.
So then from there, we slowly started moving into slip tests, many slip tests, creating our own slip, using a slip that we had in-house, and seeing what those then did on top of these clay bodies. By this point, we had already moved into the commercial because we needed to focus back on the aspect of accessibility, because people will not have access to buying the materials to make the clay bodies at home. How do we make it more approachable for people? Yes?
And what commercial clay body?
The ones that we see here are the P5, which is provided by High Water. All the clays are provided by High Water. It is
We actually have a list of a few.
We do, yeah. We have handouts with all the clay bodies, slip recipes, some of the glaze recipes we have. So we are more than willing to
Yep,
give
right
those
after
out at the end.
We'll start handing them out to whoever wants them.
But the clay bodies that we had used was the P5, the earthen red, the red stone,
River Grit.
the river grit, and then we had one that someone had donated to us. It was a Desert Buff, which is also a commercial clay body that is sold by High Water. So, but going through the different test tiles and seeing, getting ready for glaze tests.
We also tested commercial glazes. We found stroke and coats, of course, always work throughout all the temperature ranges. We had the commercial clear also worked. It's really stable. It didn't run. It did its thing.
Yeah, and testing just the different types of glazes that are out there so that we can give ourselves a good enough palette to see what the glazes do, and not give ourselves a large amount of palette of colors so that we overwhelm ourselves more. So a nice enough number to where we can limit then that number to a smaller number, and then seeing with the slips what those effects do with those glazes like normal.
And all of these glazes so far at this point were only in the oxidation electric kiln. We just wanted a basis point of how stable they were, the colors that they might be in oxidation, and then from there we started switching them over to reduction in our gas guile kiln. We wanted to get a pretty standard idea of what they would look like. We did Cone 3 reduction in the gas kiln to just start from there, and then we started the process of converting our old gas kiln, electric kiln.
And then with the glazes, we went through a process of not just finding, we had used the John Conway Cone 3 book to help us with some of the glazes just to figure out, a good start. We also looked into the John Britt Cone 6 book the mid-range book, and then seeing what little things we could change to bring those temperatures down a little bit, so that it is able to melt at the cone 3 temperature. So then we started moving into the lovely process of ripping it apart
and putting it back together.
Ripping the elements out, packing all of the clay into it. It was an extensive process, really trying to figure out how we can make this kiln as stable as possible with little to no maintenance to it.
We ended up finding, go back one. We ended up finding Bruce Bauer's article about converting an electric kiln for cone 10 wood. We use that as a starting point to get.
Is this your handout?
Yeah, we
Yes.
have research.
Yeah, all the information that we've done.
Everything we took, slips, a few the glaze that we actually really
The
like.
resource books
Yeah.
the resource books that we use as well will be on that
And we
handout.
have contact information for further questions. But part of our process also started with our burner system. It's a 6-port burner system that runs on propane, and we got it from a vendor in Land O'Lakes, Florida. It was Summit Kilns, and our teacher had actually known about it beforehand from her work in the Caribbeans. But we started with that, and it was only $350, which is actually a pretty reasonable price for anyone starting out trying to approach this. We had our few issues with it, but we'll talk to you about that. There's always issues.
So during the process of building the kiln, we went through, how do we keep the walls as stable as possible? Because we're going to be introducing a lot of elements to this kiln. How do we avoid the destruction of this kiln so early? So we would pack the
After
grooves
removing the elements,
after
yeah.
removing the elements. We pack the grooves with a 50-50 hawthorn and sawdust combination clay that we pack the grooves with.
Yep.
And then we coated the inside with Ceracet first to really make sure that the
Cover the soft bricks.
cover the soft bricks, make sure that protect it as best as possible. And then we went ahead and we created a super soda kiln wash that we would use as the last resort to kind of almost protect it as a 3-way step, pretty much. It's 3 doors to get to the
And
to get to
usually
the end of the
after
road.
each of our firing, if we saw any problems with it, we just recoated it and
Yeah.
painted it right back on. So after that, next slide, we started the process of approaching the firebox and the chimney. So we actually had to cut holes out of each side of the kiln. It's a very permanent step. And then and then after we did that, we coated the insides with hard brick. We cemented those on as well, and then started building up with soft brick and hard brick. We also created soft brick inserts to block the chimney and the firebox for when we needed. So it's all easy once you.
So then we went ahead and
dedicate.
we finally started testing. I mean, we had previously fired the burner system to make sure it actually worked, and we did get to fire it while we were at Summit Kilns, But seeing how it actually looks inside of the kiln that we are building is an incredible thing, because you're like, wow, this is really it. This is happening. And how do we protect the burner systems inside? So one of the issues that we started dealing with was right as soon as we were turning the burner system on, is that it kept shutting off on us roughly 10-15 minutes into it. And this is the problem that we kept noticing repeatedly. We had a full gas tank. We had all the levers to the right components. So what was going on was that the solenoid started becoming the issue, where we had to open the solenoid up and actually remove one of the safety features.
It was just choking the pilot.
It was choking the pilot.
So we
The
had
solenoid
to
was choking the
replace
pilot.
that whole setup. We sent it back to Summit Kilns. Of course, it worked for him once we sent it back. Of course. So we had to then he opened it up for us to create more gas to the pilot.
And then we actually, unfortunately, had to take out the safety features, was the...
No, we didn't.
I
It's
thought we
still
did.
on it.
Oh, just kidding.
We are at a university.
I was told wrong then.
The university requires all the safety components to this kiln, which is also probably recommended for all
For all universities.
So this is what it looked like in the beginning. So we had our lovely firebox and chimney in the back. And then we also created another chimney on the top of the lid. So our idea was that it was going to be an updraft and cross-draft kiln. Updraft for when we wanted to do just a basic gas reduction, and then cross-draft when we wanted to introduce wood and soda. We were ambitious.
We were very ambitious. And then we finally got into, this was now the second, oh, excuse me, the third.
First one.
The
Gas one.
first one was just strictly a gas reduction firing, moving into a wood with soda applications, meaning that we had no idea really what we were doing with the soda. We were all learning for the first time what it is that we were doing. So we actually lathered and buttered wood with a soda mixture to just see what would happen. And some of the results that we actually did see was that the soda was taking at that temperature. It was starting to actually give effects at that temperature, but it wasn't doing it across the board. It wasn't moving it across the board.
So this is the results from our first firing, which was just the gas. This bit was exactly what we got in the actual gas reduction at Cone 3 as well. So this is when we started, this is like our process of breaking down the soda, of buttering it, of introducing it, which is all pretty crazy to us. We also had issues in in the second firing when we started introducing soda. Of course, halfway through, it broke down on us again, and we had to switch to a front burner system. So we just put it into the Firebox and started cranking it up and letting it do its thing. It ended up getting to temperature, the 2100, but we knew it was going to be a problem because it was only getting, the cones were showing that the front was getting to temperature, but the back was having an issue.
The back was very, very cold. So we actually, some of the pieces that we had in that kiln, we had to salvage again and just basically refire it. So we did a third firing that was...
The hours, how long it takes. So we did want to mention that all of these firings so far were done in like a 7-hour period. We were basing it off of our fast fire wood kiln, which goes in 7 hours. So we had charted the kiln log for that kiln and basically made sure the increments went up in roughly the same, because you can't always control it. But we didn't want to get too hot too fast, and we wanted to give it enough of a kind of reduction period. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hit and miss. But, if anyone wants to ask us and use our kiln logs, we have an idea of what it should look like.
So then the third firing we had was that...
this is the actual results. We have some of them up here, a few of them up here, but this is where we really found out that the soda was sticking.
The soda was taking, and a lot of the pieces that had the soda deposits on it were mostly towards the front, receiving a lot of the deposit from the wood. Yes.
The third fire.
This is the second.
This is the one with soda introduction in the wood.
And these were the pieces in front.
Yeah,
Yes.
These are the pieces in the front.
Yep.
The shells were melting wonderfully. We were having, we had the bowl here, but the actual marks
The
it was
flame
pulling
marks.
from the chimney, but not much. This was like the one piece in the back that actually did get results. So it was kind of like a little surprise when we entered.
Yes, sir. We, that's when we were...
It was hard to measure in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we soaked the wood overnight in a soda solution, and then right before we threw it in, we threw more soda on it. We've never actually approached soda, so we were just reading from books what we should do and seeing where it went from there.
So getting into this refire where we're just doing...
The pieces that didn't get to temperature.
Yeah, where we're now we're taking it back a little bit. We hit this crazy phase where like, let's do everything. Let's put everything as much as we can in there and just see what happens. And now we had to kind of take this step back where we were just introducing the soda to see what would happen if we can get these flashing marks. Wood, where we're just introducing wood and seeing if we can get these flashing marks, if we can get it to temperature, make sure that the burner system is working accurately. So now we're breaking the kiln down and making sure that each step of the way is working as it should.
So we included this video just to kind of show how our Firebox works. So it doesn't take much wood to run on. We just really had a bucket of wood. We introduced wood in like kind of around cone 010, around there. We kind of wing it. The Firebox is made with, obviously we align it with hard brick, but then we just have a soft brick with nails poked into it to kind of pick it up and take it off.
That's our door.
Yeah, that's our door. And then we have some fiberglass to keep it out. This was also during the beginning. We are trying to work on the fire
Yeah.
issue of it spitting back at us.
Still
It's-
developing the firebox little by little, and
It's just we have an issue with draft and getting it really into the kiln. So we're working on it. It's adjustments, you know. Yes?
What kind of burner is that, and what kind of gas pressure are you using?
So we do, like,
This was during, this single burner.
this was the single burner.
Salvage of the second fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't ordinarily use that burner.
You're using it there, so what are you using?
What is that one? That's the one we use on our wood kiln. That's,
Right, it's just running off a little 20-pound tank with, whatever. Yeah, right. Pressure.
So there's no regulator,
not on that one.
Not on that one.
just running off the pressure of the tank?
No, there is two regulators, but, we would just turn it up or down depending on, what we felt was necessary at that time.
So what was the PSI, do you know?
I don't remember.
On the actual 6 burner, we usually keep it to 3.5.
3.5.
Six burners, try to keep it.
Keep it at 3.5, and as it drops, adjust it back to 3.
3 PSI?
Mm-hmm. 3.5. We start at 3.5, and as it starts to drop, we readjust it as needed.
And then we found every time we replaced the water, it brought the pressure back up. So it's just kind of a constant adjustment of taking
Yeah,
care
because
of it.
we keep our gas tanks.
Of the rate that you're expending the tank?
Mhm.
Trying to keep it at around 3 PSI?
Yeah, 3 psi. So
We have a whole dance around once we end up running out of the tank, we switch it really fast, and it's still hot enough that the kiln relights. But we did want to keep it at a 20-pound tank because they're easy to move around and fill up at the local Home Depot or Lowe's.
We moved to a 40-pound tank for one of the firings, but it turned out to not work to our advantage as well, just because of the fact that
It freezes up
it
too
freezes
fast.
really quick, and trying to get all the ice from not freezing it is almost near impossible.
So these are the results from just the wood firing, our 3rd firing. We still had residue soda in the firebox, so we found a lot of that on the pieces. But considering it was a refire, a lot of pieces actually ended up turning out pretty nice. We still had some flashing. We still got some shine. It was promising. It was promising.
Do you know what temperature the soda volatilizes at? But when do you start?
We start spraying it
was-
right around.
The thing was, everyone was kind of telling us that we shouldn't do it at cone 3 and that it was only at higher temperature ranges. So we had a large problem like finding results like that.
Yeah.
Remember, in the book, it said it will volatilize at 1800.
It will volatilize at 1800.
Yeah, the John Conway book mentioned that.
But the soda Gale.
Fire, yeah, yeah.
So,
We start introducing it. Well, okay, so that was the second part of this. We had Patrick Rademacher come and visit us, and he's been working with soda firing. So he helped assess our kiln, and he talked us through some of our problems that we were having, and when we should introduce soda and how to introduce soda. So we started introducing, from this point, we made adjustments with the firebox, opening it up further. Did some maintenance, just patching up a few pieces. We then also adjusted the chimney, because he said it just wasn't pulling enough for us, so we should just close it up and just use the top of the lid. And then he was telling us about how to introduce it and when to introduce it. He told us that we should introduce it in the last hour of the firing, and then just spray it like crazy
it was
basically.
2 pounds of soda to
in the beginning.
1 pound of, or 1 gallon of water, which we slowly realized that we messed the numbers up here and there during the process. Yes,
What are you bisque firing to?
Kono 8.
Kono 8.
And how much wood are you using?
We
It's
use
1 bucket.
about like a 5-gallon bucket. We just fill up with 12-inch pieces of wood, and
It actually
we measure it
doesn't take
based off
much.
that. We in one fire we probably went through just not even really half of a bucket. We went through a few pieces here and there, but it really, for this one in particular, doesn't require much wood at all, because we're really just using the wood to help move the soda and help move some of the heat around. Because the ash deposit won't melt at that temperature, but you'll still get some of the heat.
We'll still get some of the flashing and the variation in the clay body. So then we wanted to do a mass kind of extruder pieces to just start testing more slips and more application of soda. This is where we really found the slips that work on the for the kiln. And then with this kiln, we started switching to spraying soda solution into the conversion kiln. What do you mean? Sorry, say that again.
How were you spraying it?
With a
Garden spray.
With a garden spray.
Yep, 1 gallon bucket.
Just through the Firebox?
Through the Firebox, and we also attempted through the back, which was the old chimney. When we got to that point for this firing, we realized that plastic melts. So we actually didn't get to pour the whole gallon into it, but from the little bit that we did see some promising results. You know, we did see soda deposit happening, but we definitely needed to.
The pieces were beginning to self-glaze themselves.
Yes.
It's just we didn't have enough. It's kind of like where we had to lean back against the fence and kind of like spray it in. So it was just supposed to be a chimney. We messed that up. All right, so then this was the firing that we did last weekend, which was going to be like
2 weekends ago.
no, last weekend.
Oh, this one. Sorry. Yes.
It was we
Yeah,
were
this
firing
one-
to the day we left.
Yes.
It's a long day or a long week. So this was a time where we put together a whole bunch of our production pieces and just wanted to throw them in. We packed it really tight. We did some tumble stacking.
Definitely. One of the things that we tried in one of the earlier firings was a mixture for plaster shells, which had whitening in it. And in those earlier firings, we were realizing that those shells weren't making the markings that we needed. So for this firing, we went ahead and we switched back to our normal everyday shells that we can find at our beaches. And realized that those are doing exactly what we need them to do. So there's something about those plaster shells that don't work at that temperature, that do work for us with the real shells. And then
So
just trying different, just going back to the step-by-step process. Now we're reintroducing the soda to it. And one of the things that we fell into for this last firing was that, once again, we were trying the soda bit and realized that we didn't have enough soda to water ratio. So when we had pulled all these pieces out at the very end, we realized we were just spraying water into the kiln, which is something that we learned right at the very end. So we are planning on doing another firing, or 6 or 12 or 100 until that kiln falls apart, to see the actual real results. And we are seeing soda deposits. We are seeing movement of flames based on just the kiln alone. When we empty the kiln out, we see all that on our floors. We see it in our fireboxes. So there is definitely promise for this temperature for soda and wood to be able to make it more accessible for people to use in their own homes.
even most promising is the kiln is actually holding up really well. We have a slight issue with the floor, which we're going to do a kind of a repair job on it because the stress is cracking with all the heat coming from the bottom. But other than the heavy deposits of soda in the firebox, we're seeing the kiln is holding up remarkably well.
We're at fire number 5 as of last week. So for little minor things, where it's definitely holding up like it needs to.
What's the time frame on this project? How long has it taken you so far?
We started a year ago. So
Well, okay, we started in
almost a year
July.
ago. Yeah, July of last year is when we started, and we had 6 weeks for the actual grant portion of this project, but we wanted to definitely continue this project, and especially with being so fortunate to be here, we definitely needed to continue the project to be able to present it to the people here. Yes.
It looks like from the floor that you still have openings for the original system.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening to those burners? Are they,
Well, no, we're using the burner system. We got it worked out.
you got it worked out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it the impression that you were using only the?
just for that firing.
One firing, when the burner system failed us at that point, because the orifice on the pilot needed to be bored out a little bit further, and it was starving the main burners, so when we turned the main burners on, the pilot was backing down to the point where the solenoid was shutting it off. And, so we did already just been with that and said,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's working now. It's working.
Are those being affected by the soda?
No,
Not that we
surprisingly
see.
not. There is some slight buildup, but it's not blocking the gas flow at all.
It's more so around the burner than it is inside the burner.
Yeah, we're not sure how that's gonna go.
We're gonna figure it out.
Hopefully the pressure will.
We're hoping. So these are some of the pieces from the last firing. A lot of them are up here now.
So yeah, I mean, definitely seeing the results that we needed. You know, things are melting, things are glazing, things. The Rio seashells are working for us. They're leaving the markings.
We have this great fake wood ash glaze that's creating nice runs, and it's working out really well for us. We have that on one of our lists. Oh yes, the best thing about this last firing is that we got it fired in 5 hours, even with our switching of the tanks, which usually loses like a half an hour roughly.
The more we've done it, the better of a dance it's become. We know who's doing what at what point, who's grabbing the tank, who's unhinging the tank, who's rehinging the tank, who's checking to make sure it gets relit.
You could run this with 2 people.
With 2 people alone, could probably run this whole kiln. So
Yep. And we loaded
that morning,
that morning, and then fired for it. So it was just one day. We did everything. Glazed, loaded,
Glazed,
and
loaded.
fired.
we were gonna go
It-
home that day, but we're like, no, let's
Let's
just
do
get
it.
it over and done with. I'm gonna go back really quick because I have to talk about this for like 2 seconds. On the top left corner, we had actually forgotten to make cone packs. So our lovely professor had the idea of recycling an already fired cone pack
Oh, no, they've been
that same day. With the wadding that we use is a mixture that that we
Very
use,
intense.
a very intense mixture that we use in our own wadding, and just seeing what would happen if they blew up. They blew up, but they actually held up extremely well. These are our Franken Cones up there on the top left corner. But they definitely held up extremely well. The wadding holds up very well. It does not, even if you put it in right away, let's say you're wadding things and you're having to throw it in the kiln right away, they won't blow up. It'll harden over like it usually does. So
Surprise, surprise.
the magic of ceramics.
Yep.
So just some of the other pieces. Some of them we do have up here, some very promising results coming up. And we definitely have various documentations that we take. We have the binder up
We
here.
have the binder here for if anyone's curious of what this kind of
This journey has
full
been
process.
for us.
It's a lot of adjustments.
A lot of adjustments, a lot of
We have
research
all our
intake.
kiln logs and notes through each firing. Yeah.
So what kind of kiln wash are you using?
It's
What did you just wash the inside of the kiln?
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
just brush it right in there, and
coated every single thing. We coated the kiln shells. We coated the walls.
Alumina high grade, and
It's
It's
alumina hydrate fire clay malachite. It says grog in it, which is really interesting. And grog and something else. And it's working wonderful. No, it doesn't move at all.
yeah.
We only had slight bubbling on one of the kiln shells, but we just wiped it off and recoated
Yeah, you
it.
just kind of give it a tap, wipe it off,
It didn't affect anything.
rewash it.
What kiln shells did you use? Regular electric kiln
Yeah.
shells?
On the bottom, we've got 1 inch, the electric kiln shelf, but the heavy duty one, because the burners are slamming right into it, so we've got 1 inch on the bottom, and then we've got the 3/4 inch shelf above that.
But you didn't get silicon carbide or
Just the plain ones,
Whatever was accessible
Mhm.
in the studio yard.
any soda on the shelves that are?
Surprisingly, no.
No.
Not even on the front shelf that's right next to
Yeah.
the firebox. It's only the firebox that's really had the built up.
And we
So-
spray right into the actual kiln,
Yeah.
so it's shocking that none of it has actually,
Affected anything.
yeah.
And what's your cubic feet?
Cubic.
That is a good
What's
question.
the oval, it's an old Olympic oval, so it's probably, those are what, 13 cubic feet, something like that?
Okay.
Plus the front and the back,
Depending
so
on however much
yeah.
you build out from that.
So we definitely want to get this discussion going and seeing if anyone has any recommendations or if ideas that they'd like to share. But this is our contact information if you have further questions. At the bottom is our Flickr link. We are still taking the documentation, the visual documentation, and seeing, so that we can open it to people to see what we're doing, how we're doing it, if they see things that we're doing wrong that they want to comment on.
Can you talk about how you did the lid?
The lid
The lid.
is, so with the Olympic kiln, we kind of just removed the hinges, and one of us on either side, we put a cart right in front of the firebox, and from either side, we grab it, lift it, and put it right down, and then roll it away, and then put it back on as,
And more focus and handles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our studio
he-
technician had added a second set of handles to the other side because the hinges are only on one side, so that both of us have the ability to go pick
and
up, move.
we kind of try and like
Shift
lift
it a little bit.
shift it, and then get really under it, so.
Because we
that-
try not to hold it from the hinges because they are not, they're hinges, so they're not going to be the strongest things in the world, but we try and get a good amount of the top as possible.
But it just following up on the lid,
Mhm.
looks like you have a K-roll blanket over there.
We,
The fiberglass
blanket. We
blankets.
just want to keep the,
The
it
heat
was just
in.
for heat.
Drop it on
Yeah.
the blanket.
Yeah,
It's
just holding in extra
throw
heat.
it on.
And what have you got for a damper?
That is the interesting question with this. We don't actually have, we have a kiln shelf on top that
We
it's like
take
a
a ruler.
6-inch opening. So we push it in, pull it out, work with,
So backtracking a little
Reduction.
bit, we cut a hole into our lid as our damper and as an area for,
That's the chimney.
yeah, that's our chimney.
Yeah.
That's our new chimney. And then we use the kiln, that shelf to play as our damper back and forth.
And you just enlarged the hole that was in the center of the lid?
No, we kept it the same size from the very beginning.
well, we didn't, we cut it with, a saw.
When you buy a burner system, he gives you a layout for cutting the holes in the floor and also gives you a very specific, size for the hole you cut in the lid in order to facilitate the pressure according to what the burners are doing. So, yeah, we cut the hole in the lid according to the instructions
Mhm.
and.
And there's been
It's-
no problem with weakening or flexation of the lid?
No,
Surprisingly not. We did coat the underneath of the lid with Saracet and kiln wash, but it's held up. No, there's multiple.
I'm familiar with Saracet, but did you consider instead of packing the element channels with your clay mixture, using a refractory coating like the ITC 100 or something like that? Would be a little less labor intensive.
The clay packing actually came from the Bruce Bauer article, so we had followed that and we figured why not, just because we knew it worked for him. And then the Saracet, we were just using it because
This sort of refractory
It's
cement.
refractory.
I mean, it is a little bit labor intensive, but it was all for the sake of the research. I mean, if people wanted to do something a little bit less labor intensive,
And I'm curious if you have attempted or had any success firing that to cone 6 with a 20-pound propane tank.
So Bruce Bauer actually gets it to cone 10 on propane tanks. I don't know how many it takes.
Talking about the burner system.
No.
Tank, though?
No, yeah.
no,
the
we've
burner.
never actually tested, like, we've never tried to test it out to cone 6 because our end goal was always cone 3.
Yeah, that burner system, I saw it used in Barbados on, and they fired a cone 6 all the time.
Okay.
We have been trying to sort out the whole gas pressure problem, and it is a bit of a dance to fire on 20-pound tanks. But, if we just treat the tanks right and we have to keep adjusting the pressures, we can get it through. And so, yeah.
The trouble isn't the gas pressure, it's not with the tank freeze.
Yeah, it's.
We keep it
It's-
in
yeah,
a
it's always
bucket
sort
of
dropping
water.
and-
Why don't you use bigger tanks?
Because
Use 100 pounds.
I have a
'Cause
500-pound tank we fire the other gas kilns
It's
on,
just we
but
can't lift it.
it became a belligerent thing, right? It's like, I want to do this with a 20-pound tank, I don't want to be. We went to a 40-pound tank, and even that, it's sort of hard to haul around. I mean, the idea of how can we make this really doable? Once you go, yeah, sure, and the manufacturer of the burner system says you should fire it on a 100-pound tank. But moving around 100-pound tanks and going and getting them filled and all this other stuff, we thought if we can figure out how to do this with a 20-pound tank, let's just keep trying.
It's all about the accessibility.
Yes, right.
I recently kiln that we were trying to get to kiln, optimistically kiln 9.
Mhm.
But halfway through firing, we were just trying to get to kiln 6. We have a 100-pound tank, and it was
It froze.
by the time we were at kiln 08,
Yeah.
we completely lost pressure. Like, no
What we've
on-
been doing throughout is we usually stick our hand in the water, and the second it feels cold, we kind of replace it.
Yeah.
We just start
it's actually
refilling it,
helped,
yeah.
and then the second we do that, we see a rise in the pressure and also in the temperature of the kiln.
The other thing I was gonna ask, that the other problem, we had a million problems.
As did we.
Trust me,
As
we
did
did
This
too.
is the first time we fired this kiln, and it's like a 35-inch round electric kiln.
Mhm.
And there was like the person who converted it put like an 8-inch hole in the top.
Okay.
And so we halfway through the fire, and we noticed this like huge like fissure through it, and
that's not good.
the metal handles popped off from because it was in the family
Right.
during the fire.
Yeah.
And it like barely made it through the fire without collapsing during the firing. Like
Well,
when we
that's
went
horrible.
when we went to like unload, the whole thing just crumbled.
Ooh.
Putting a lot of weight on top of that chimney for a damper turns out will eventually lead to that problem. Yeah, because we kind of have like it was like 2 kiln shelves for a damper.
Okay.
And I think that weight during the fire may have been what
Right.
happened.
We're planning on building a much lighter replacement lid
Yeah.
Yeah.
with fiber.
Yeah.
That thing is really heavy to move around.
It's-
I'm actually pretty surprised it's held up.
Yeah, if anybody like has any suggestions of what another way we can build a lid or something.
We were thinking fiberboard, right?
Or
Or-
fiber, or some combination of fiber and fiberboard, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Because it's getting, we're worried we're gonna drop it one day.
Yeah.
Or it
Or it's
will
gonna crack
fall
right down the
into-
middle. Yes.
Yeah, so, a couple years back, I did a kiln building class where we took like a kiln and did the same thing. And we were first of all thinking about having it where it goes directly into the kiln.
Mhm.
And last minute, we decided to actually have it where it hit the side, so it created more of a vortex.
Mhm,
And that actually helps tremendously. We were able to get tungsten reduction in just a small kiln like this.
Right.
Right,
Burners.
exactly.
So where was the burners coming up from? Or were they
This is
just shooting
just one burner going in.
Going
the
in,
side.
yeah.
But at an angle?
Yep, so it hit the side of the wall and then it just went around like this.
Oh, cool.
So we were able to
That's
get the
pretty
same
awesome.
results, tungsten reduction, just by doing that in 6 hours.
Mhm.
That is really impressive.
Yep, yep. And we had, that was hooked up to natural gas, but we also could have done with propane. You just have to switch up the little, the orifice on it, right, exactly. But that's something to think about, like change the direction so it creates more of a vortex instead of just shooting in and kind of doing its thing.
It probably might help with,
Right. The burner system that
Introduction.
we have is actually under the kiln shooting up,
Okay.
right? We just, the picture that shows the single burner going in, that was a Hail Mary pass. That was, you know, our burner system had bailed out, so it's like, okay, we'll just shove a burner in the firebox and we'll keep going.
Yep.
And, right.
Yes.
I'm fired in Alaska, and I have problems with my propane freezing all the time. So what I use a block heater, and I put a concrete blanket around the tank, and you can also invert the tank, a 100-pound tank, you can put it upside down, and you don't have that thing that's running.
Whoa.
that is
That's actually,
amazing.
Upside down? Wow.
we'll have to look
That
into that
sounds
one.
scary, but awesome.
And if you have problems with your regulators starting to freeze up
Mhm.
because the diaphragm becomes funky, put a heat light on it. Put a heat light on it, and you'll have the fuel come right through.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes, sir, in the corner.
KC Clay Guild, we've done a lot of firing like this on propane tanks, 35 pound, various sizes. One trick we learned was, if you go to the propane supply, probably Amazon, and get a little Y adapter, so you can hook two or more tanks
Yeah.
together.
Clay bodies we use. We have, if anyone wants one, right at the end.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to get an email list.
Okay, we're
We
gonna
can
get an
email.
email list.
We looked at commercial earthenware clay, because the clays we mixed in the studio did great in oxidation, not so good in reduction.
Sure.
So we looked at earthenware clay bodies that had a high range and mid-range clays that had a low range. So like the 4 to 6s, and then this one, earthen red, everybody's favorite, it's like 04 to 5.
Oh, wide,
It's got a crazy range, and
Yeah.
it's no,
No,
no.
it's
We had that
amazing.
slide of one bowl in oxidation and one bowl in reduction. It's a beautiful color when it's like completely reduced and makes this crazy gray color. Where is it?
In the front, in the beginning.
Back with
All the way in.
somewhere.
There's a lot of slides, actually. Huh?
It really is
There you
there,
go.
that one on the
Go back.
bottom left,
Yep.
right? That's oxidation and reduction with this clay body at Cone 3, and it's a terrific clay. Really is good.
The absorption rates were great. Everything was great about it.
Yes.
Just for reference for you, the standard soda solution way to make it is to take as hot a water as you can get out of your tap. You can even boil it. Start stirring soda ash into it. Keep stirring soda ash in. It dissolves fully in the water.
Right.
Keep watching. Keep adding small amounts. Keep stirring until you just start to see soda ash like sitting in the bottom of the container.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Supersaturated solution.
Okay.
That's the standard soda solution for the spray application method.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, and we've been talking to people, and I was just talking to Doug Case-Beer, and he does 2 pounds to 1 gallon.
It'll
And-
work up to about that.
Right, Patrick goes all the way up to like 3.5 to 1, and but we just had 1 pound in 1 gallon, so it just wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough at all. But the promise is there.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to make a connection for you two. 15 years ago, when I was a working potter in Portland, I was building a kiln like this,
Mhm.
and someone said, you need to get a hold of George Wright. I know he passed away recently, but you could probably get a hold of someone that knew him through George's ceramic and clay. But he was building kilns like this. He isn't a potter, but all the potters migrated to him because he had probably over 20 kilns on his property. He and I went over to his place and we did this at his place.
Okay.
We used some gas and then we just started throwing wood in. And I was building the same kind of kiln as well.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give you the heads
Oh, thank
up.
you.
Like, I bet you they're still on his property. I think his wife might still be there or his
Okay.
family.
Okay.
And I wish I had my notes on me. I can keep pointing it.
Oh, thank.
For a while.
Well, no, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that and
Yeah.
and see if we can get in contact. Well, yeah, definitely. There's still definitely a lot of promise for things. There's still a lot of testing to do. So, I mean, again, we unfortunately don't have the
Printed out list,
printed
but we can
list,
send
but
you the
yeah,
email document.
we have an email list up here. If anyone would like one, we can definitely send you one via email as soon as we get back. And
Any less?
yes.
When you were talking earlier, earlier about commercial clays, and you said something about commercial glazes and testimony, you said stroke and coat, I think that's
Mhm.
the product. Are
Right.
you using any other commercial glazes, and were they like low, trying to get them to go up high, trying to get them down low?
We did the LG.
The Amico LG10.
Yeah.
That's
Works
about
like
yeah.
bomb. Perfect clear
What are
glaze.
these?
And that was the
It's right here.
Yeah, and we definitely have the pieces up here if you guys would like to
Yeah.
come see the pieces. Just look at them.
On the
thing that we'll
email.
you.
Yeah. So again, thank you everyone so much.
Thank you.
Definitely a pleasure.